Kvaratskhelia steadying himself! A star in the making. And there's the only goal! Sabini with it! After 11 years, once again, Milan are the champions of Italy.
Ciao ragazzi, Frank Crivello here from Serie Sitdown. Welcome to Serie Sitdown, podcast of World Football Index. Flying solo, it's all mine. It's all mine for about a half hour. Richard has been under the weather all week. Hopefully he is getting on the mend, get well. Richard, Alex has got some other work commitments, making it very hard for us to pin down an actual date this week to do a podcast. But I am jumping on here for a half an hour because some important things have happened over the last week that we wanted to give you our takes on, and go from there. So we should be back full podcast, Who Won Calcio Twitter and all the trimmings by Tuesday, hopefully as early as Tuesday night. So do appreciate you hanging in there with us. And you have to put up with me the entire half hour of listening. So hopefully I take care of you without Alex and Richard being available. So, but we will have everybody back by then. Let's begin with, we're going to trace all the way back to January 4th. It's been a while since we've talked with you. January 3rd was our last podcast, and we all gave you a preview of Inter and Napoli. We were all generally wrong, except for Alex Donald saying that a rested Edin Dzeko is very dangerous, because that's exactly what happened. Edin Dzeko scored in the 56th minute off an assist from Federico Di Marco in Inter's win over Napoli by a 0-0. It was Napoli's first defeat of the season. It was a massive win for the Nerazzurri at the time, just in terms of just needing to get a win, against a high, one of the high-profile teams in Serie A, and trying to get things back on track, trying to mount some sort of a Scudetto challenge. So when you look at the lineups, it was pretty much what we expected. Inter had Onana in goal. They played Skriniar, Acerbi, and Bastoni across the back. Darmian started at the right with Di Marco on the left, and you had to suspect that Darmian's start was for defending, was for providing Skriniar some help dealing with Kvaratskhelia. They basically hacked Kvaratskhelia out of this game, and that seemed to be the game plan all along for Inter defensively. Barella, Calhanoglu, and Mkhitaryan were in midfield. Romelu Lukaku returned to the starting 11 with Edin Dzeko up front. And it would be that Edin Dzeko goal in the 56th minute off a cross from Federico Di Marco that would win the game. Was the only shot on target for Inter in that game. And really, when you take a look at it, this game, like I said, it went the way that we at Serie Sitdown expected it to go. Napoli was going to have the ball far more than Inter was going to have the ball. We thought that a key guy in terms of running the show in that game was Piotr Zielinski. He played for 65 minutes, was relatively influential with the time that he spent on the pitch, got off a couple of shots, created a couple of chances, helped his team keep the ball. Very seldom lost possession when he had it at his feet. So things were running well through him. Kvaratskhelia lasted 76 minutes. And the idea was to play aggressive, play physical with them. The mission accomplished in doing that. And then looking at the rest of Napoli's lineup, I thought they got a decent shift out of Matias Oliveira playing on the left-hand side. He was certainly lively coming forward. He created some pretty interesting passes. And it was interesting. Oliveira didn't cross much here. He passed the ball in, created a lot of things. Mainly into Victor Osimhen, who had a nice chance on target in this game. A big chance there for them to score. Didn't get that done. And then other than that, it was a solid, but not save for the goal that they conceded, a solid performance from the combination of Amir Rahmani and Min Jae Kim in the center of that defense. So, looking at the Napoli side, that's really what we got in that game from them. Kept the ball, tried to create some things, only were able to manage 2 shots on target. So it was a comfortable day in general for Andre Onana in goal for Inter, who prior to this game was last seen having a hissy fit with Cameroon and leaving early. But maybe with the couple of saves that he made and with the overall performance, his command of the box and his command of the Inter defense, that he probably had a thing or two to prove to the Cameroon coach. The back three for Inter were all outstanding. They played with the right mix of positioning, toughness, being strong on the tackle, really sending a message to the Napoli attack, saying that this is going to be difficult for you. So I was very impressed with the physicality of all three of them across the back: Milan Skriniar, Francesco Acerbi, and Alessandro Bastoni. I thought that they worked well as a unit. They covered for each other. When they had to defend the ball, they defended it well, and they made it hard for Napoli to break them down, which it was going to, a lot of that burden was going to be put on them, and they were going to be put under a lot of pressure because when you looked at Inter's midfield, Mkhitaryan, Çalhanoğlu, Barella, none of these guys really strike you as stopper types that can protect that back three. So you had Zielinski coming through, creating a little bit of danger. You had Oliveira coming from the left side, being pretty influential. And then on the counterattack, it was Edin Dzeko scoring. It was a cross from Di Marco. And Federico Di Marco was his usual self in this game, getting an assist, getting off a few crosses. And I got to say this, 4 crosses only in this game, but Inter only had 36% possession. So we usually see a lot of crossing volume from Federico Di Marco over the course of the game, but it's natural that when you don't have the ball as much, you're not going to cross as much. So, to take the chances that he did, to create the key chance that he did, and Dzeko finishing it was very, very important. So a 56-minute winner. So I would probably give a nod for man of the match. I would probably share it between Onana and the back three for Inter. That's where I'll go. If you want to go Nicolo Barella too, he played with incredible energy for the entire 90 minutes. Didn't do much in terms of creating anything, but won some tackles in the midfield, helped do some of that dirty work, basically had to be that de facto protector of the back three and did a great job with it. So for me, you could put Barella in there as the best player in the game. If you want to have the guys who had a piece of the goal, that's fine. I'm going to go with Onana. I'm going to go with Skriniar, Acerbi, Bastoni. I'm going to let them all share it. I thought that the performance from them back there was outstanding. Had to be to keep a very prolific Napoli attack out. As for the Napoli side of things, okay, we asked this question about them as the season was unfolding. Did they really get pushed in this great run that they made prior to the World Cup? They beat Milan. Milan didn't have Rafael Leao. They got some key wins in there. They got some key performances in there. They finished top of a Group A in the Champions League that on brand name, you look at it and it's very, very impressive. Liverpool, although Ajax isn't what they had been, and we had talked about this on the podcast, they weren't the pacey team that we come to know with Ajax, certainly more technical. And then Rangers, a team that was in over their head. And they caught Liverpool in a pretty rough period. Liverpool certainly playing a little bit better now, it can be argued. But they caught them on a match day at the Armando Maradona where Van Dijk didn't have his usual partner to his side in defense. You have Trent Alexander-Arnold, who can't defend particularly well. He's in there for his crossing, and he's also willing to give the odd ball away for the technician that he is. That's kind of surprising. So that's the looking at that. I don't know if they ever beat anybody that was at their best at any point during this run, and that's being a little bit harsh on Napoli. And certainly they deserve the position that they're in because good teams, do what they're doing, and they still have a 7-point lead, at this stage of the season. And to have that is pretty impressive, and you better be pretty good, and you better take advantage of the situations that are presented to you. And they certainly have done so. Now they're going to get pushed. It was just Inter. I believe at the weekend, if I'm not mistaken, Napoli ended up pulling a game out. They beat Sampdoria, beat 10-man Sampdoria 2-0 at the Marassi. So you had that, and I believe that red card came pretty early as well. According to my statistics, it did. Yes. So they rebounded nicely from the Inter defeat. Osimhen scored, Elma scoring on a penalty. You had Rincon getting sent off in the 38th minute, which complicated things for Sampdoria. But Napoli were able to rebound nicely, win that match. Looking at them a little bit further, they did not have a Copa game, or they play it next week again at home against Cremonese, so they didn't have that at midweek to have to contend with. So perhaps that helps them a little bit here. But Juventus as well. So, and we're going to get into that here towards the end of this podcast, toward the end of this brief podcast. Napoli and Juventus. We're going to give a little preview, talk about that game, what to look for, and what to be excited about here as it pertains to that match, because I think it's going to be an exciting one, especially with maybe the little bit of a resurgence that Juventus are starting to realize too. So, Napoli's getting pushed now, as I said, and can they pick up and regroup from the form that they're in? I think it's one of the things that I'll argue is that it is very difficult to nearly impossible to sustain the kind of form that they've played with throughout the course of a 38-game season. There's injuries, players hit bad patches, they don't hit the technique that they normally do. There's a myriad of things, and then some of it is that the other teams start to get stronger. They start to figure some things out. They start to figure this Napoli team out, who quite frankly, I thought Napoli was going to be in reverse of what we're seeing. I thought that, and I've said this multiple times here on Serie Sitdown, I thought Napoli would struggle to start off with. A lot of changes, some leadership gone from that dressing room, that it was going to take some time, that they were going to have to acclimate some new pieces with some of the departures, and that the second half of the season was when we would see them turn it up, when they would probably over the course of 19 games get 45 some odd points, and then would be everybody's trendy pick for 2023-24. Well, it's happened in reverse. Napoli comes flying out of the blocks. So we now have to ask, are teams ready to figure these guys out? And then we'll talk about that a little bit with Juventus now coming to the Maradona on Friday in detail, as it pertains to that. So that is what we're going to need to understand of Napoli here over the next several match days. And Kyle Mukian is asking, I think Napoli actually have good squad depth now, which may not have been the case in the past, maybe. There might be some truth to that, Kyle. There might. So the midfield, I think, is as deep as it's been. I think we can maybe make that case about them when you take a look. They can interchange some things a little bit. You've got Zielinski, Anguissa, and Ndombele. Elmas obviously coming in and playing a cameo. Deme is capable of coming in and helping out in a cameo. Lobotka has been very good for Napoli this season as well. So in particular, in the midfield, this might be as deep as they've been. What have we said about Maurizio Sarri's Napoli over the years? They weren't very deep. Sarri played the same 13 or 14 guys, and they got on a nice run and they were winning, and then they got run into the ground. So, you could make a case for what you're talking about here, Kyle. the forwards, Osimhen being able to stay healthy throughout this that matters. Okay, Kvaratskhelia coming onto the scene as quickly as he has, that matters. They obviously have tremendous depth at the striker position. If Osimhen does fall, you do have Cholito, Giovanni Simeone, you have Giacomo Raspadori. Where I think it can fall apart for Napoli is in a couple of areas. I think that Hirving Lozano and Matteo Politano, I think there's weakness in that right wing position between those two guys. I haven't been convinced by either of them. That's and we're clutching at straws here, guys, when we're talking about Napoli, because after all, it is a team with 44 points from 17 games. So it's that position, I think, needs to be a little bit better. They need more production out of Lozano, out of Politano. And then in the defense, Oliveira has been solid. Mario Rui, okay. Giovanni Di Lorenzo, the fullbacks have been okay, but I think they can be had. And at some point, those guys are going to get figured out a little bit too. Just seeing Bartosz Berezinski is now part of the setup with Napoli. They have rescued him from that Sampdoria nightmare. I didn't catch that. I'm looking at the squad here, and I see Berezinski here. So there you go. The squad depth is there to now take on but it's also there to take on more than one competition, Kyle. And Napoli are going to have ambitions to go deep in the Champions League. They're going to have ambitions to do well in Coppa Italia. We'll talk about a team here that I don't think had the same ambition for Coppa Italia. But yeah, I mean, I've been rambling here a little bit about the squad depth. It's a great point. But I think eventually, and another thing that I want to add, we talk about, okay, great start, can potentially get found up because it's really hard to maintain this kind of form throughout the course of an entire 38-game season. It's also Luciano Spalletti, right? Have we seen this movie before with him? We've seen it plenty of times where he gets them in these kind of positions. He gets them contending. Probably, I don't know if he's ever been in a spot where he's had a team that's had the lead in Serie. It might have been for a little bit with Napoli last season. It actually was Inter. But he might have had a little bit of a spell where Inter had first for a little bit under his watch as well, and then it didn't work out. So, but we've seen Spalletti's teams fall apart from a mentality standpoint. So we ask that question. But we asked that question about Pioli's teams until he finally got over the top and won the Scudetto at Milan. So this might be Spalletti's team now in that parallel with what Pioli did at Milan last year. Spalletti finally getting it over the top with Napoli this year. Plenty of questions that I still want to ask about Napoli. I'm not crowning them champions yet. My goodness, there's only been 17 match weeks played. They have a 7-point lead. It's very healthy, but I see some contenders here that are really going to give them a push. One of whom is Juventus. We're going to preview this Napoli-Juventus game here shortly. But before we do that, I want to get into Milan a little bit here as they have suddenly started to struggle. They took a 2-2 draw at home against Roma, a game that they were in complete control of for a large, and this was on Sunday, for a large period of the game, going 2-0 up in the 77th minute. And then Pioli makes some adjustments. He brings De Ketelare in for Giroud. He brings Gabbia in for Salamakers to bring in an extra defender to try to close things out. And if you ask me, and I'm going to go to bat for Pioli, and I'm going to take my usual blasting of Milan Twitter as I like to do. I couldn't get over all of the comments from many Milan Twitter accounts on Twitter. I just couldn't get over it. It just, Tatrasanu's trash. I'll go back and look at the games where Tatrasanu saved this team. So he's their number 2 goalkeeper. You're only going to get so many good performances, and you're going to have to expect there's going to be a bad one that reminds you of why he's the number 2. But people were blasting Pioli's tactics, and I'm going to stand up for Pioli here. I don't think I do anything different. And if Pioli had it all to do again, 2-0 up after 77 minutes, I don't think he does it differently either. This comes down to the players' inability to execute. Where does Milan get beat? They get beat defending set pieces more often than not. What's Roma really good at? They're good at attacking set pieces. So this is on the players to know that you're coming to this point in the game. Roma's getting corner kicks. They're getting free kicks. They're getting set pieces. Have your responsibilities and take it seriously. Do your job. Close it out. Okay, that means if they're going to get corners, make sure everything's organized. First balls, second balls. The tying goal came on a failure to act on the second ball. It allowed Roma to tie the match, which was Tammy Abraham who knocked it in, and then you had the Ibanez goal in the 87th minute. So I put it squarely on the players that were on the pitch for not carrying out the responsibility before I'm going to put it on Pioli. That said, Milan Twitter, take a deep breath. It's a long season. Moments like this happen. Remember Spezia last year, okay? And Milan recovered from that. They're going to recover from this. And I don't look at this Coppa game against Torino and use that as a measuring stick. Okay, Milan outshot Torino 34-11. They had 8 on target. On a different day, they win this Coppa game in a rout. All right, Torino finds a way through Michel Ndari Adopo in the 114th minute. Yeah, I haven't either. To win the match for Torino, get them through to the next round. Anthony Scanga, thank you. Milan Twitch are a touchy bunch. They very much are. Every time there's a loss or every time there's adversity with Milan, the sky is falling, according to Milan Twitter. And then we have to hold their hands and say, no, things like this happen. Okay? If it happens over a consecutive stretch of games, then yes, we should get worried. But this is one game. It fell apart. They screwed up a 2-goal lead. Away we go. So 34 shots on Torino. Was it Vanja Milinkovic-Savic? Yes, Vanja Milinkovic-Savic decided to play like Torino Vanja Milinkovic-Savic and not Serbia Vanja Milinkovic-Savic. And I know it sucks. It's optically, it's not a good look when you lose to 10 men. But look at the lineup that Pioli trotted out there and tell me if he was really serious about wanting to win this match and qualify. Okay? He wasn't. All right? If he was, Astor Vranks isn't starting. Matteo Gabbia isn't starting. They're not experimenting with a back three. Okay? So when you take a look at some of those things and that lineup came out, you immediately need to say to yourself, okay, this is the least of the priorities of the 3 competitions that Milan are still chasing. They're going to play an experimental lineup. They're getting different people out there. If they happen to win, hooray. If not, it's what they expected, and then they can move on to trying to go back-to-back in Serie and trying to make a run in the Champions League, which is realistic because Tottenham hasn't been playing very well. So that's one team they could potentially knock off. Torino deserve, in the end, they held on, they get the win. All right. Milan are out of the Coppa, but this is not time to panic. Okay. You can play good football and lose. You can create a lot and lose. It happens. That's what makes this sport so great. I'm not pushing the panic button on Milan just yet. Although some very, very glaring struggles here. The remaining 15 minutes or so of the match against Roma, where they basically let Roma back into the game and let them get something out of it. And then, dropping the match here against Torino in the Cup. Now, Saturday, they go to Lecce. And I'm going to make the argument that we can't judge them on Lecce either. Okay, because Lecce is a difficult place to go and get a result. Okay, it's been difficult for everybody to go there and get a result. Lecce have played really well at home. They don't concede much. I expect Milan to create a lot of chances, create a lot of possession. They're going to have to finish their chances. Lecce going the other way, not a whole lot that would scare you. if I see a flat performance and a letdown from the last couple of games, then I'm worried. If I see a good performance, I see Milan playing the Milan way, and they come out of there with a draw, it's because it's mainly because Lecce have been playing well at home performance wise, but ultimately I expect Milan to win. Okay, and I think everybody here listening would expect Milan to win that game on Saturday. So let's all calm down. A little bad patch. They picked themselves up a win here. We can pretend like none of this ever happened. Okay, so and then I should clarify a little bit. Matteo Bonetti, and I'm going to be very clear about this. I have a lot of respect for Matteo. I think he has a lot of respect for me. But I did call out his comment about this dropped 2 points against Roma potentially being something that could help decide the title. And I'm paraphrasing what was actually said. You have to go back and look at the exchanging of ideas that he and I had. I am not a fan of looking at anything until we get closer to the end of the season. Okay, they're right now there's still 21 match weeks left. There is a wide range of outcomes that can go on. Napoli might just continue this form and might blow this thing away. And what happened Sunday between Milan and Roma are moot. Juventus might 1-0 everybody to death. That's the way it's looking right now. They just are going to take their 1-0 win and move on to the next one. So lots to unpack yet. A long, long way to go. We can't just look at one game and all of a sudden create this conversation that this could be a game that decides the title. You go all the way back to match day 1. Inter won at Lecce at the last second. And I remember the commentator saying that they could look back at this game and look back at this goal and all this other stuff. It's match day 1, man. Are we really doing this? I like to wait until the end of the season, and then I can go back and look. Yeah, should have won that. Lost 2 points there. Yeah, get those, we win the title. But right now, we're too far away from having those kind of conversations. It's just good. It's just good debate for now. Is really the way it is. Okay, so lastly, I do want to touch on a couple of things here, just on the transfer market. Roma got Ola Salbak from Bodo Glimt. That's kind of a notable name. Memo Ochoa going to Salernitana. We forgot to bring that up last week, and we apologize. But Ochoa made an impact in his opening game at home against Milan in that 2-1 defeat. Made 8 saves, looked terrific. You're just another piece of good business by Salernitana in terms of getting together a team that's going to continue to survive in this league. And then leaving us, Ruslan Malinovsky is off to Marseille. He's leaving Atalanta. I hate seeing talented players leave this league. I get it though. Atalanta right now, no Europe. Some of the revenue streams that they've been comfortable seeing are not coming in. Malinovsky, it's time for him I guess it was time for a new challenge. I don't think this hurts Atalanta terribly. There's still plenty of playmakers. Koop Miners is taking on some set piece duty. And the way Atalanta are starting to set up these days, being more of a counterattacking team, you can get things through some midfield. Juventini are happy to see him leave Atalanta. Sure they are. But they can counter through so many different combinations of forwards that they have in their team right now. And Gasperini will just continue to keep mixing that up. So finally, let's preview Napoli and Juventus here, taking place here on Friday at the Stadio Diego Armando Maradona. The bookmakers like Napoli as a slight favorite, -105. They think this will be a low-scoring contest, as evidenced by over 2.5 at +110. And I tend to agree with the under on the 2.5, but I'm conflicted on making Napoli a winner here. I think having the home field advantage is going to spur them on. There's no doubt about it. But this could be the it moment for Napoli. As in terms of serious title credentials, when you look at the standings right now, it's quite interesting. Juventus is now in second. They're on 37 points. They have an incredible winning streak going on. We should point out here that they've only conceded 17, or they've only conceded 7 goals through 17 matches, and that matters here, okay? Because Napoli are going to want to push the tempo. They're going to want to possess. They're going to want to create. They're going to want to find ways to get in behind. And I think the way that Allegri sets this Juve team up, they're just not going to have the spaces to do that they're typically comfortable with. Again, I'm going to come back to the key man for Napoli needing to be Pietro Zielinski. He is going to have to get creative in how he unlocks this Juve midfield and defense. He is going to have to deal with waves of numbers playing in that third of the pitch. And then Juve are going to try to counter, really with Milik as a reference point. If SofaScore is to be believed, it's a 3-5-1-1 from Juve. Kostic playing as a left winger, or on the left in his left wing back position. McKennie is going to tuck in. Paredes and Locatelli and Rabiot are all going to tuck in and compact things in the midfield, which should free Di Maria to be the first guy out that they play to on the counter. And then you're going to see Kostic getting forward, Milik maybe getting it at his feet and holding it up. That's the way, that's Juve's path. And then they're going to have to create something out of those limited chances. Napoli, how do you get Kvaratskhelia free? I think Danilo is going to defend him hard. Bremer against Osimhen is going to be a fantastic matchup in the box when Napoli's trying to put in some crosses. Can Osimhen get clever? Can he catch Bremer here? Can he get into some positions and score dangerously? Politano is an X factor. I never have been a big Politano fan, but he's going to have to come up with a big game here to help Napoli. I think the key men in this game, on the Juve side, it's how well that back three. It's a different dynamic with this back three versus Inter's back three. They're going to be able to cut passing lanes, position themselves. They're not the hard tacklers that Inter's back three had. So that's going to get taken out of the mix. So I expect more chances. I expect Szczesny to be challenged more. It's a big game for Szczesny. He's going to have to come up with the goods here as well. Mario Rui coming forward. Can he put some pressure and keep McKennie pinned back? Can he get crosses off? Di Lorenzo, I don't see getting forward as much for Napoli because of the threat of Kostic coming forward. And I think that might give Pietro Zielinski a little bit more freedom to link with the attack as well. And then you've got Rahmani and Kim. They're going to have to put in another good display. So I look for Juve to counter, whether they hit Milik at his feet and let him hold it and guys can come through. Di Maria supporting that and then pulling the strings from the middle, and then Kostic pulling the strings from a wider area. I'd even argue that when Di Maria comes out, he'll come out to the right so that Kostic has room to get to the left and high. Look for that too, guys. But I think it's a set-piece goal for Juve. And Tech going for Buffon's shutout record, needs 2 more games, he believes. Yeah, he's going to be motivated, definitely. And Kyle thinks that Juve are really good at controlling games without the ball. Napoli need to find a way to disrupt their structure. Definitely agree with that. I think they're going to find it difficult. I think that Allegri will take pieces of what Inter did and he'll tailor it to what his team can be able to do. And Chiesa can be the X factor tomorrow. Expect Chiesa to come on. I think that Juve announce their title intentions tomorrow. I'm going to go for the upset. I'm going to go for Juve to win this game by 1-0. It's going to be on a set piece. I think that Napoli, for the second straight big game, struggle to get pressure, struggle to get quality opportunities, but this time for different reasons. So I go Napoli 0, Juve 1. And Richard and Alex will probably go on Twitter and disagree with me. Certainly are welcome to do that. But I see the upset here. I see Juve winning. It's a set-piece goal. Can't tell you where it's going to come from. Let's just shoot for the moon and say Bremer. Okay. We've made sillier predictions than that, haven't we? So we'll go with Bremer getting the goal that separates the two teams and sends Juve to a win, gets them closer to Napoli, and turns this into a title race yet again. So we have Napoli Juve's Friday, and just to run down the rest of the weekend to get you ready. Cremonese, Monza in the morning on Saturday. Lecce, Milan, Inter take on Hellas Verona. Those are Saturday's games. Sunday, we have, if you want to wake up really early in the morning, Sassuolo, Lazio should be a treat. Torino, Spezia, Udinese, Bologna. Atalanta take on Salernitana, and then Roma and Fiorentina. Very interesting game there at 2:45 Eastern time. And then on Monday, Empoli will play host to Sampdoria. So pretty intriguing slate to get ourselves excited here. Roma and Fiorentina. Fiorentina's starting to find some form, starting to accumulate some points. Can they keep it going at Roma? I think that Roma win that narrowly. So I think they win that very narrowly. They take care of it. They defend. They keep Fiorentina out, and they go on and win. I'm going to go 2-0 to Roma in that one. So that puts a bow on this very abbreviated edition of Serie Sit Down. Thanks for hanging out with me. I'm at FTC_21. Richard Carman is at R_KHARMAN. Alex Dono at ALEXDONNO. Serie Sit Down, Twitter, Instagram. Chime in with your thoughts there. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever there's podcasts. You can find us at Serie Sit Down. So for Richard and Alex in absentia, I'm Frank. Glad to have flown solo. This is probably the only time they're going to let me do this. Make sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.